Hi YouTube, welcome to episode 3 of my Firewood processor build. At the time of this edit, 15 subscribers, so thank you to my subscribers. In this episode I'm going to build most of the infeed table. I have a few odds and ends I'll have to finish off that I left out on purpose because of still figuring out the log lift and the chainsaw, so I didn't want anything that was going to get in the way. Just welding a cross member in here that's the same length as the two C channels laying there, and there'll be down brackets that those will fall on. The total length of the infeed table is 13 feet, just kind of what it worked out to be. The plows that were laying there in the background are actually going to be the sides for the infeed table. So this is the axles for the log feed chain, 1 3/4 inch. I left them long on purpose because I still have to figure out lengths for the drive for that front, the front axle. The rear axle, there will be no drive for it. It'll just be an idler. Doing some measurements here to figure out from the bottom of the pillow block how far to the top of the chain. These are going to be the brackets down to the cross members that those other C channels will go in. All these pieces that are on were part of like a lumber shelf or something that a buddy of mine, same one that gave me the trailer, gave them to me. He had them sitting up at his farm. The trailer actually got wider as I went forward, so I had to do some center marks to figure out where my down pieces would go. It was only by like 1/8 of an inch, but luckily I didn't just measure in and mark. I actually measured total width. So these are 4-inch C channel. The down pieces are, I think they were 3-inch. Those other pieces worked out pretty well with the brackets that were already on them, because it made it so I didn't have to butt weld from the bottom. I could just weld everything from the side, and I even cleaned the holes out and plug welded them. So it's definitely sturdy. So I had cut these other two pieces to give me the full 13 feet. Cut some pieces of 2x4 and then I clamped them in just to hold the top at the right gap so I could square everything from front to back. I had some angle iron from that same shelving units that worked out for, just put some bracing down through the center. Bracing on the outside will probably only be on the side I'm on right now because of the log lift to help keep it from pulling. I'll have to see where my engine and my tank go to figure out if I'll do any bracing on the other side as well. The tongue end, I squared that up before I finished welded everything in. I don't have really a good way to brace that down there, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet. I'll have to figure that out once the log lift comes into play. I set up some blocking here just so I can try to get an idea of exactly where the chain was based off of what measurements I came up with. It was 6 inches from the bottom of the pillow blocks to the top of the sprocket. I tried these 3-inch cross members with an 1.5-inch square tube, and that was still too low, so I went with these 4-inch pieces, and then I need to do a 2-inch square tube, and that's flush with the top of the chain then. Here I'm just welding in some more bracing that goes front to back. Not sure if I really needed it, but I ended up putting it in anyways. So I went to the scrap place where I do buy some scrap, and they didn't have 2-inch square tubing in long lengths. I found a bin that had a bunch of these short pieces in it. They were all long enough to hit each cross member, so I thought it would work. In hindsight, I probably should have just went and bought new square tubing, but trying to do this out as much scrap as I can to try to keep costs down. Worked out pretty well. It was straight. I welded all the butt ends and ground them down. This video of me cutting the plows in half. I actually cut them after I finished the splitter. I pulled everything out and cleaned up. I cut these up quick while I had the room. I had some wood blocks in underneath to keep it from pinching once I got to the end. The first one was the 6-foot plow, this one's a 7-foot. That blade was pretty much destroyed by the time I cut those two up. I got overheated it on one of the cuts. I welded some blocks in about an 1/8 inch down in between the angle pieces that come down off the plow just to hold it. Plus it gave me something to weld down through because I just stitch welded the top. Figure that way it'll let debris and water down through if it does go out in the rain. I set at the splitter end, I set the plows back 1 inch from the face of the splitter. That way I had room for the saw. And the angle pieces that come down around the back, they were fully welded around on the square tubing, except for I left a little gap at the bottom of each if condensation or anything like that got into them. This side was the bottom of the plows, and that side's definitely way heavier. They have extra bracing in for the pivots and everything. I didn't bother cutting any of it off, so it definitely made those pieces a lot heavier. The bottom pieces are also, they were in a lot worse shape as far as they were tweaked pretty bad. Here I'm just using a 2x4 in my floor jack to get this end up high enough so I can weld it in. I just realized I didn't weld blocks in. I had to do the same thing with this one. This one was actually worse as far as how beat up it was and bent. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but it was bad enough I had to pull on it with some clamps to get it to line up properly. This is the cutting edge off that 7-foot plow. I think it's 3/8 inch. It was about a little over 6 inches long. So I decided that's what I was going to use for my cleats on the chain. So I cut them to 1.25 inches wide. I cut them down to 5.5 inches long. I welded 8 to each of my 10-foot chains. I basically skipped 2 links in between each cleat. Here I'm using 1-inch pipe to weld a transition into this end in case I have to back the chain up. It wouldn't get caught. For the other end, since the chain's mostly moving from that direction, I made a more gradual transition. Just cut some of this pieces that I had left over from the square tube and weld them in on the end. And also put a halved piece of 1-inch pipe over to completely seal that off. This chain might be way overkill. So my gap in between the 2-inch square tubing was enough for the chain to fit, but it wasn't enough for the master link because the master link is a cotter pin. So the first master link, I just welded it and cut it off narrow enough that it'd fit down through. At point of no return, the last piece of the chain, I did a rough measurement. I think I ended up cutting it longer than it needed to be just to see how it worked out. So I'm making brackets that'll go in underneath the chain. They'll go in around it. And my plan all along was to have something down there that the chain would ride on as it's going through. So I figure if I make these brackets and put the chain up, I'll have a better time of trying to measure it, an easier time of trying to put it together. These L brackets were just an old bed frame that my dad had given me, so I cut it up into the lengths I needed. Here I'm welding a spacer. So this is 3/4 inch square tube. I'm welding a small piece onto the bottom where it's going to fall in each bracket, and that gives me my 1.5 inches that I needed, and that'll give me plenty of room for when I weld the teeth on the cleats. There'll be a tooth in the middle, and then teeth on the outsides. So basically the teeth will be straddling the guides. So I cut another 2 links off, and I still couldn't get it hooked. So I had to finish the chain guide the whole way down the length. With the guides in, I was able to get the master link in. Now this master link I didn't weld yet. I just put it together because I might have to take this chain back off. I'll need to do something with the guide ends to make sure that the chain doesn't get caught on them. I didn't finish that in this video. There'll be some miscellaneous stuff I'll have to do. Like I said, my bracing on the outside edge of the plows. I didn't want to do them until I get the saw done and figure out what I'm doing with the log lift. So that's pretty much the end of this one. Hopefully the plows work out. I'm a little worried that they're not. I'm worried that the trough isn't close enough to the chain, so I might have to do something with my teeth to make sure that I can still grab the log even if it's outside of that width. But we'll see. I'm trying to use what I can get a hold of, so without spending a ton of money. But thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. That way you'll know when the next video come out. The next one will be the saw. I'm going to start, got parts ordered, so I'll start working on that, and that'll be the next one. So thanks for watching.